Hello and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the cooperative trick-taking game, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. Now, I grew up playing various trick-taking games, with spades being the big one I played all the time with my family, so I have quite the love for trick-taking as a card game mechanism. In this Lord of the Rings themed game, you are going to be going through an 18-game campaign, playing as various characters along the way. Some of these games are short games, meaning that they are played over one hand, and others require multiple hands in order to complete the level. The game starts by setting aside one random card as a lost card, and then the rest of the cards are dealt out equally to the players. Then typically whoever receives the one ring card will be Frodo if he is in the game. Then each person will choose one of the other characters to be. Typically there are 4 characters as options in each game, but sometimes there are more, and typically 2 to 3 of the characters are required to be played by someone. That means in a 3-player game, there is a character that gets left out of the options altogether when there are 3 characters that are required to be used. Each character has a specific goal that they need to meet. Sometimes it's a goal that can be met mid-game, such as Frodo's goal of winning a certain number of ring cards, and sometimes the goal requires completing the game, such as the goal that says win 1 or 2 tricks, since you can lose the goal by gaining a 3rd trick. Each hand begins with resolving character setup actions, which typically include certain players being able to trade a card with another player. Gandalf gains the lost card, and as you go through the game, various new actions will come into play. After resolving these actions, the game plays like a normal trick-taking game, with Frodo or whoever has the one ring leading the first card. Players must follow suit if they are able to do so, and the highest card wins. Any cards in a taken trick are considered won by the player who won that trick, so winning rings with Frodo can be done when players throw rings off suit and Frodo wins that trick. There is not a trump suit, so to speak, in most of the game, but the one ring card acts like a trump card, but with an interesting caveat that you can choose to either win the trick or lose the trick when you play the one ring. The rest of the ring cards are not trump. Also, ring cards cannot be led until one of them have been thrown off suit, or the player leading only has ring cards left in their hands, similar to the way that trump suits work in other games. The game ends when all players achieve their goal or any character fails their goal. If all characters achieve their goal, you win and proceed to the next chapter. But if any character fails to complete their goal, then you lose and you have to replay that chapter. During the long games, you can carry over, winning a hand, and keep playing to win other rounds, so you don't have to start from scratch when you lose a round. The 18 chapters take you through the story of the Fellowship of the Ring. There's a short blurb at the beginning of each chapter providing the story. Throughout the game, various characters are added to the game, and various new mechanisms and rules are added as well. The game also comes with a special set of rules for solo play and special rules for 2 players, which basically adds a dummy hand that is set up in a pyramid with some cards revealed like in 7 Wonders Duel, and players can choose which card out of the cards that are currently uncovered to play for the 3rd player. Throughout the game, there is limited communication allowed. Players can only discuss information that is visible to other players, and players cannot reveal information about their hand or discuss preferences when it comes to choosing a character. They can remind each other of their character goals, special rules, and the current status of their goal, or other public information. There's also an ongoing way to play the game once you complete the campaign. Now, this is the gist of how the game plays. Let's get into my review of the game, starting with art and components. There are not a lot of components to this game outside of cards. There are 5 simple wooden markers for marking who is a required character, as well as for marking when you complete your goal by placing it on your character card. There's also a large wooden one-ring disc, which has a black and white side and a colorful side, which is used to indicate when rings have been broken, so players know if they can lead rings. Though for all of us pro trick-taking players out here, this isn't really necessary, and we ourselves often forgot to flip it. The one ring disc does look really nice, though, and can be handy for those who might have trouble remembering if rings have been played or not. Cards are pretty good quality, and they feature very charming artwork. Also, the box itself is well designed, with 3 sections and a tuck box style for chapters 2 through 11 and 12 through 18 to keep everything separate. Finally, the box itself looks really great with this nice shimmering finish. Now let's get into ease of play. The game is fairly easy to learn to play, especially if you already are familiar with trick-taking games. It does take a little adjusting when it comes to the fact that the ring suit is not trump, even though it acts like it in the idea that rings need to be broken in order to lead with rings, and the one ring itself is a trump card if you want it to be. The rulebook also contains a very helpful section for potential complications for the rules for each chapter, which typically, when we had a question about an interaction with something from the chapter, the question was addressed perfectly right there and made clear in that chapter-specific question section. The wording on character cards for their goals are easy to understand, as are the additional rules that are added in various chapters along the way. And so this is a very easy game to get into and learn how to play. Now let's get into the gameplay itself. As for the gameplay, as someone who enjoys trick-taking games, I have enjoyed this game quite a bit, especially as the game got a little more involved and more difficult as the game progressed. There was often tension in the games as you're unsure if you're going to be able to meet your goal or unsure if you're going to be able to help others to meet their goals. Even choosing characters to play as could be quite tense, as often none of them seemed easy to do with the hand of cards you were dealt, especially since you have no clue who has which other cards. You have to choose the character that seemed the most achievable with your hand and then work out how to make it happen. Often being able to trade cards with other players help to mitigate the luck of the draw to make your goal more easily achievable or to help others in achieving their goals. Also, the fact that you had to choose characters in order around the table without discussing meant that sometimes the second player may choose a character that the third player wanted based on their hand and was perfect for the third player, but the second player didn't know that. I also like the way the one ring card works and that you can choose to either win the trick or lose it. Now, it was seldom exploited to lose a trick with the one ring, especially since Frodo would usually be the character with the one ring card and would need to collect rings. But there were a few times in games where Frodo was not in the mix or someone else could collect the ring cards as well, where it worked out for the person who played the ring card not to win it. So it was a nice option to have. The games themselves play really quick, about 5 to 10 minutes. And so even if you lose a game, the stakes are not that high as you can just reset and play again. We would play several chapters back to back in a sitting because of how short the games played. It was also nice that the long games didn't cause you to completely reset when you lose a hand, as winning 3 or 4 hands back to back without a loss in the middle would have been quite difficult and could be quite frustrating if that was the requirement. The player count that we played at the most was the 3-player count, and I did find it kind of unfortunate that many games had required 3 characters, and so the 4th character just couldn't be chosen. This was not always the case, as some only had 2 required characters, but then again there were a few that had 6 potential characters and required 3 of the characters to be played. And so those other 3 characters were just not even options in a 2 or 3-player game. I liked how the game implemented the 2-player game by including a dummy hand with limited known information and limited cards that you can play at a given time. We only played a few games at the 2-player count, but the system worked really well for the first 6 chapters that we played at 2 players. The 2-player mode provides an extra wrinkle of strategy, even with trying to work around what the dummy hand has available at the moment and trying to unlock cards that you can see that you might need to get to, or trying to unlock the unknown cards because they could potentially mess things up if they came up at the wrong time, or could potentially be needed sooner rather than later. I've not given the solo mode a try, but on the surface it looks like it could work well. There's also a mode called The Road Goes Ever On, which has you take certain cards from the campaign and then randomize all the characters with a certain amount of characters with a black symbol and a certain amount with gold, and then you play it like a long game, which means it takes about 3 wins to beat it. It also adds a gift, which is an item that will help you once in the long game, and one of the dark horses, which makes one of your characters harder in some way. While I don't find the ongoing game as engaging as the full game simply because it misses out on adding additional rules and challenges, and you miss out on the unlocking aspect of the game, it does simulate the gameplay well. From a challenge standpoint, the randomized game feels about on par with the later games in the campaign due to how it adds a mix of easier and harder goals, as well as the Dark Rider card as an additional challenge. Ultimately, if you enjoy the trick-taking mechanism and enjoy cooperative games with limited communication, then you'll probably enjoy this game, especially if the theme appeals to you. Now let's talk about the theme for a moment. This game implements the Lord of the Rings theme well for a simple trick-taking game. The character abilities often relate to the characters in some way, especially with some of the chapter-specific characters. Some of the characters have additional versions for the later chapters that fit with what's going on in the story. I won't go into specifics here so as to let you discover them on your own, but I especially like Samwise's late game character ability for how it tied in theme-wise. The more knowledgeable you are with the Lord of the Rings, probably the more you'll get from the theme in this game. I personally have more of a surface level understanding of the Lord of the Rings, and so I made less connections with how things work thematically than the other players who played this game with me. There's also a light story being told as you go, which did seem more like flavor text, but for such a quick game, you don't really want to read too much before each game, or else the reading could become as long as the game itself almost. I think the story works well and the length of story fits well with this game style. You don't need to know all about the Lord of the Rings to enjoy this game, but if you are a Lord of the Rings fan, you'll get even more out of this game from the thematic tie-ins. Now let's talk about replayability. Counting each hand as a game, so long games took multiple games, even if all of them were won. It took us 33 games to play through the 18 chapters in our 3-player playthrough. I believe we lost 10 games along the way. This took us 5 separate sessions and somewhere between 5 and 6 hours to complete. I would certainly say it would be worth playing through again, especially at different player counts and with different groups. The game can also be played with randomized setups once you've completed the game. I found that to be a fairly satisfying way to play and adds a way to play with people as one-off games instead of having to go through the campaign with every group that you play with. Though I would find replaying the campaign to be overall more satisfying when you can get another group to want to play through the campaign or even with the same group again. Although some of the earlier games might be a bit easy once you've played through the whole campaign once before. Overall, I feel like this game will have a decent amount of replayability even after you've played through the 18 chapters. Now let's get into my final thoughts on the game. I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. It is a quick, simple game, yet it has a satisfying level of strategy involved as players have to help one another achieve their characters' goals. As someone who enjoys trick-taking games, I've really enjoyed this cooperative trick-taking game and that cooperative aspect of that. The variety of goals throughout the game and the ways the game changes up and adds new challenges throughout is very enjoyable and provides some decent variety. My wife is not a big fan of trick-taking games, but she has really enjoyed this experience as well. Of course, it helps that she is a big Lord of the Rings fan. I can highly recommend this game if you enjoy trick-taking games, and especially if you enjoy cooperative trick-taking games like The Crew. Well, this one is a little more limited in communication because you don't have those communication tokens. The theme, I feel, is much stronger in this one. I've not played enough of The Crew to really make a full comparison between the two games, but they do both have a fairly similar feel as you are trying to help each other achieve certain goals. Though from my limited experience with The Crew, the goals for Fellowship of the Ring have seemed a bit more interesting overall. Of course, take that with a grain of salt since I've only played a handful of games of The Crew. Maybe one day after playing more of The Crew, I can do a proper comparison video between The Crew and The Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring. The game plays well at both the 2 and 3 player counts, and although I have not played it at 4 players, it seems like that might even be the ideal player count, because then you get more options when it comes to characters to play as, though it would also probably make things harder, as you would now have 4 goals to meet each game instead of 3. I found the way they designed the dummy hand for a 2-player game worked really well, although playing with 3 players is overall a better experience as there is a degree of added luck that comes in with the implementation of that dummy hand there in the 2-player game. Although the added strategy involved in making that dummy hand work, I did find very satisfying. I'm not sure if it felt harder, easier, or just different strategy-wise when having to work with that dummy hand. The final word on this game is that if you like The Lord of the Rings and you enjoy trick-taking games and cooperative games, then I recommend checking this one out. I hope you have enjoyed this video. It's giving you an idea of whether this is a game for you or not. Please check out some of my other videos and subscribe if you haven't already done so. As always, I hope you have a great week and keep on gaming.